Hey everybody! Alright, so today we're going to talk about refactoring a component that renders an icon to make it more usable and more accessible. So I got this code from somebody who wanted some feedback on it. Basically, we have this SVG component. It accepts some props. We pluck some stuff off of the props and we render a span. And some of the props determine whether we show this show action I icon or the hide action I icon. That's just SVG stuff. And then here whoops, remove that. Actually, let me go ahead and I'll paste this in the chat so you can check this out. But yeah, so here I'm just using hooks. They're not actually using hooks, but this is the way that it was going to be used. We render that SVG component with this stuff, and then they forward that along to the SVG component. So the first thing that I wanted to change about this was the span. Definitely should not be using a span for something that you want to allow users to click. So here we can click on it to make it go back and forth between showing and hiding. This is for like showing and hiding the value as you type in the text field or in a password field, I think. And so yeah, using a span means that I can't actually focus on that element. So if I tab just using the keyboard, it's not keyboard accessible. So that's not cool. They did have the ARIA label, which was cool, but yeah, I can't get to it with a keyboard. So there's one thing we could do is say tab index equals 0 to indicate that we want to be able to tab to this element. So then I tab, and now I can, I can't hit enter or the space bar. I'm actually not sure why that's not working. That should work. But in any case, that's not what we want to do either. If the thing that you're, there are two things that you should be able to click on as a user, buttons and anchor tags. And so when do you use one or the other? So an anchor is when the URL is going to change. So you're going to navigate away to somewhere else on the page. A button should be used when you're going to perform an action. So and that applies to like if you're going to pop open a modal or something, yeah, the user is going to be kind of re-navigating, but they're going to be, unless you're changing the URL, I wouldn't recommend using an anchor for that. I would use a button for that. This is definitely a case for a button, so let's go ahead and we'll make this a button. And then we run into styling issues. So what I'm going to do is, like, we could use class name or whatever. I'm just going to use an inline style. So we'll put this right here, style equals, and we'll say border is none. And that gets rid of those styling issues. But it also, when you change it to a button, it makes it have more padding and margin and whatnot. So we'll say padding is 0 and margin is 0. Actually, I don't think that the margin really makes a difference. I'm pretty sure user agent styles don't have a margin. I guess it doesn't hurt to have it. But now people who are using the SVG component can't pass a style attribute. So let's go ahead and we'll pluck off style as well. And then we'll merge style here so they can override those things if they want to add padding or margin or something to it. Cool, so now it's keyboard accessible. I can tab into it and I can hit the space bar and the enter key, and we're all set to go there. So sweet, it is, where is that cute sweater from? Cute sweater. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Casey. Sorry, if you can clarify, I can answer. So that takes care of the biggest accessibility problem that I saw here. So the next thing that I'm going to want to do is make the usability a little bit nicer. So this isn't a generic SVG component. This is specific to the eye icon, and I think that they were planning on making it generic so that they could add more icons in the future. But I don't think that's, well, I don't want to have that in my component here. I want to be able to just say this is the eye icon if you want to do different kinds of icons, because not all icons are going to be clickable. Some of them are just going to be display. So a good question from William: why the style prop when a class name is passed? Mostly because I don't want to have to make a class name. You can use a class name if you want to. And if you do that, then you'll want to compose these together, where you can say class name, and goodness gracious, and my class name. If you want to do it that way, that is totally cool with me. You'll just want to make sure that you default class name to an empty string so you don't wind up with an undefined class name here. So yep, going back, I prefer the style. Style one is better in my opinion. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's make this specific to the icon rather than just having a generic SVG component that is renders a button, because then all SVG components are gonna render a button. So what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna actually move some of the logic that's in here into my icon. So I'm gonna return icon, and let's look at the API that we really want. So you can have hidden and shown, so show or hide. So I'm just going to say show equals field text hidden. We'll just do inverse of that. And then we'll have, they also have the icon label or the aria label. I'm actually just going to, expose that entirely. So I'll have aria label, and we'll just put icon label in there. And then we also have an on-click handler, so we definitely want to keep that. And the class name is still important. We still want to enable people to pass a class name. Okay, so the only real things that changed are the icon name and the icon label. The icon name will be created by the I icon. So we know that it's going to be an I. We just don't know whether it's the show or hide version of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll get rid of this thing. And I'm going to make a new component function, icon. This will take our props, and then we'll return basically the same stuff, but we're going to do it a little bit differently now. So, we're going to take, props. What I'm going to do is actually, since it's class name, I'm actually just going to forward on all the props. Okay, so now I don't need to deal with class name or on-click or aria label, because those are just going to be passed. But we do need to deal with this style. So what I'm going to do is I'll destructure this. We'll take off style, and then we'll take the rest of these as props. Well, and then we're also accepting this show prop. So I'm going to pluck that off as well. So we'll say show. Okay, so now we determine what icon name to use based off of show. So we'll say show. So if we are in the show world, then we'll do the show action, whatever that thing is, do. Otherwise, we'll do the hidden version. And do that right here. Cool. And now I can toggle that back and forth. And so if we compare these two, we don't need to have the icon name in there anymore. So the end user, it's actually a little bit easier. It's more clear that this is for accessibility. In their code, they actually, on the icon label, they added for accessibility, just a comment right there. Now we don't need that comment because we can see clearly that's an aria label. That's what it's being used for. The on-click, we don't need to worry about forwarding that on or anything. We're just going to forward all the props as they are. And so that makes it a lot easier. So I can also pass a class name. I can basically treat this I icon as a button and put anything on there that I would put on a normal button. So the only attribute that actually is special about the I icon is this show. As far as I'm concerned, the style prop, I can use that as I would expect. The class name, the on-click, aria label, anything else. Which simplifies not only my implementation, I think it simplifies the implementation, even if slightly, but also more importantly, the usage of this. So I basically need to document one prop, just show, and then say, and then this renders a button, and we'll forward all your props to the button, and then people know exactly what to do with that. So yeah. Hopefully that was interesting to you and helpful in some way. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'm going to jump out. We'll see ya.